You're everywhere.
Mm.
Oh, I thought you meant sticking around for the dinner.
Please put your IFB in.
My IFB's in. I'm hearing something on the line, but no voices. Oh, yes, now I have you. Yes, I have you. Point out your line. Okay. Hey, Billy, yeah, I got you. Yes, sir. I can hear you.
Sure. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Whoa, you got taken over.
There we go. Did you do something to your knee?
And I tore my ACL. Thank you. Sorry, I put the like subliminal resigning note in your head today. Hey, hey there.
Well, I'm just glad.
Okay, so how's it working? Yeah. Mhm. Right.
And guys, is it still Savannah and Hoda?
Okay.
Or just Savannah?
Sure. So, and I can just read this this graphic whenever I want, or how is it going to work?
Scott's been agreeing to him. I'm sure. God, he's his buddy. Yeah, my where's everybody? Oh yeah, I bagged the Pentagon.
Yeah, I thought they were going to hold off.
For 30 seconds, here, guys.
Oh, here you go again.
Oh, man. Yes, Billy.
Some Uber thing going on. I thought that was yesterday.
Yes, Billy. I can hear you. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
I thought that was yesterday.
You got me?
Over in Southeast.
Like Northeast?
Yeah. At some driver center, support center. Yeah, I mean, here's the CEO of Uber, but come on, man, you gotta prioritize. You gotta prioritize. Yeah, if you really want me to. You get Zuckerberg later. You're not gonna get Zuckerberg till noon.
That's right, Savannah. The speaker saying that this will be his last term in Congress, his last as speaker, that he will be resigning in January. And as you point out, this is something that had been long rumored, not confirmed until today. The Speaker's office had, in fact, repeatedly knocked down and denied that the Speaker was considering not running for re-election, or at the very least, not running for Speaker. And when you talk to the Speaker himself about it, he would say, well, you know what, I haven't talked to my wife yet, Jana. They have 3 kids, and that has always been at the forefront of the Speaker's political decisions. It's something that he talked about when he was pressed into service in many ways about 2.5 years ago after John Boehner stepped down as Speaker of the House. Ryan said he would only do this job if he could still manage to spend some time with his family. But the reality was he was taking on a thankless job. This is an almost ungovernable conference of Republicans. They are very divided between conservatives and moderates, and that has always been an incredibly difficult dynamic to manage for Speaker Paul Ryan.
Got it, yep.
Taking them off the front page. What is it?
I think it's a strong sign of that, Savannah, and there's no other way to read this. If there were, if it seemed as though he was likely going to retain the speakership in the fall, I think it's a much easier decision to stay in, continue in this role. But to go through this entire election season to ultimately lose and then to have to step down as Speaker is a much more difficult situation in many ways. And I think this is going to set up an intense battle to succeed Paul Ryan. That's already shaping up. Steve Scalise, the whip here in the House, who of course was wounded in that terrible congressional baseball shooting, is somebody who's thought of as a potential next Speaker. Kevin McCarthy, the leader, he of course made a bid for Speaker a few years ago unsuccessfully, thought of as somebody else who might try to succeed Ryan. But again, there's a very strong feeling here among Republicans that it's likely that they are not going to be holding a Speaker election at this time or at the conclusion of the election season, but rather for somebody who will be a leader of a minority party. Savannah.
Caucus, many times struggling to get the moderates in his party and also those hard-right conservatives to come together. But he will leave Congress having passed his long dream of achieving...
Well, we're speaking, Nora, to House Republicans as they leave this meeting where the
Water's on the podium, guys.
Sooner?
Well, Savannah, I just wanted to pick up on something that Kristen and Peter had both touched on here, which is the difficulty of being Paul Ryan in Trump's Washington. And if you talk to Paul Ryan privately behind the scenes, he is somebody who had a very hard time, even as publicly he was out basically defending the president. Privately, he felt as though he was on the same kind of roller coaster that many of those of us who are covering Washington now are on every day with this president. And it was frustrating to be in a position where every time he seemed to defend the president, he would face criticism publicly, when in fact he felt as though he was speaking to the president behind the scenes, that they had a good relationship, and that he was able to be the ballast in the ship of state, so to speak, in influencing President Trump behind the scenes. But that, that role is incredibly difficult and frustrating. And for somebody who's young and who, as Peter mentioned, may want to have a future career in politics, this may make sense as the right move for this particular period in time and for the history of the Republican Party. Your other question, what his race was going to be like, he has had a Democratic challenger who has raised quite a bit of money, also spends quite a bit of money. So there were some Democrats who were excited about that, but it wasn't clear that he really had a serious future against Paul Ryan. Ryan is relatively popular in his home district. He's very well known. But it has been a slightly difficult district for Republicans. It's trended a little bit more Republican in recent years than it was before, but it at one point was a very solidly swing district, and there was a sense that Paul Ryan could easily hold it, but in any other situation it might be a race. So the question now for the district is going to be whether not running against Paul Ryan means that Democrats may not be as excited about that particular congressional House race as they may have been before. That, of course, is the hope of Republicans who would like to keep one more seat in the House, but it's likely to be a tougher race at this point than it might have been had Paul Ryan decided he wanted to run. Savannah.
That's. You should ask Ryan about that because he's join the meeting. Mr. Speaker, John Boehner could smoke cigarettes in the Speaker's office.
Hey, Matt McLean. Yeah. Melina would be in the green room here, just saying.
Oh, I know. You'd already have paid going at this point.
Yeah, she might have flown back like ASAP, time warped. Of the green room. That one picture on there. That sucks. The post had to write a correction on his caption. There it is.
2 minutes.
2 minutes.
Yeah, join us.
Rashida, is it okay with you if I sit?
That's where you're gonna be.
That's how it's gonna be. That's
Just
how
him by himself.
That's how it's gonna be. Yeah. Watch that cable around your stool, Scotty. You got a cable around your stool.
All lights go out if you pull that cable.
Whoa, that's where you're gonna be, Saul?
Another.
That's where you're gonna be?
Does it look okay?
That's how this is gonna go.
Does it look okay?
Go down.
Let me get rid of this one.
We're all counting on.
Don't be scared. It's the guy. Thanks, video.
Confirming.
Sorry.
We just got the 2-minute warning,
It's easier to get to it than,
like a minute ago.
how come I didn't answer my phone? Not that it's bad. I'm not trying to talk down. That will make her happier. If I do that. If it was going on, I wouldn't answer the phone.
Yeah, I assume that.
She's probably calling and telling me, hey, did you see Paul Ryan's retiring? Sometimes she'll call me and say something that I didn't know was happening somewhere else.
Don't get yourself in trouble.
Yeah. Yeah. She's watching at home or at work. And she hears me talk. That would be bad. I was like, that was Saul. Saul, what did he say?
Jason, it's all Jason.
Jason. Jason. Did you hear that story? Oh, why he's not a really.
Like to privacy thing. Music's recorded. Why did that? Is this good? You can stand up.
I don't know, that's just what I heard, so.
Stand and rush.
Good question. It's definitely been worth it.
Two. Want me to move back? Back or forward? Which back or forward? Which works better? Yeah. Yeah.
You can come back.
Oh, so you want it both ways?
Stand up if you want.
Senior spring.
Starts now.
Scotty.
How many speakers is this for you, Scott?
Tip O'Neill for now.
Heads up.
No, but
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
morning.
Good morning.
I wanted to share with you a little of what I just told my colleagues a few minutes ago. You realize something when you take this job. It's a big job with a lot riding on you, and you feel it. But you also know that this is a job that does not last forever. You realize that you hold the office for just a small part of our history. So you better make the most of it. It's fleeting. And that inspires you to do big things. And on that score, I think we have achieved a heck of a lot. You all know that I did not seek this job. I took it reluctantly. But I have given this job everything that I have. And I have no regrets whatsoever for having accepted this responsibility. This has been one of the two greatest honors of my life. The job provides incredible opportunities. But the truth is, it's easy for it to take over everything in your life. And you can't just let that happen. Because there are other things in life that can be fleeting as well. Namely, your time as a husband and a dad, which is the other great honor of my life. That's why today I'm announcing that this year will be my last one as a member of the House. To be clear, I am not resigning. I intend to full my served term as I was elected to do. But I will be retiring in January, leaving this majority in good hands with what I believe is a very bright future. It's almost hard to believe, but I have been a member of Congress for almost 2 decades. This is my 20th year in Congress. My kids weren't even born when I was first elected. Our oldest was 13 years old when I became Speaker. Now, all 3 of our kids are teenagers. One thing I've learned about teenagers is their idea of an ideal weekend is not necessarily to spend all of their time with their parents. What I realize is, if I'm here for one more term, my kids will only have ever known me as a weekend dad. I just can't let that happen. So I will be setting new priorities in my life. But I will also be leaving incredibly proud of what we have accomplished. Some of you know my story. My dad died when I was 16, the age my daughter is. And I just don't want to be one of those people looking back on my life thinking I spent more time with my kids, when I know if I spend another term, they will only know me as a weekend father. So I'm really proud of what we've been able to do. When I took this job, one of my conditions was that we aim high, that we do big things, that we fashion an agenda, that we run on that agenda, that we win an election, and then we execute that agenda. I am so proud that that is exactly what we have done and what we are doing right now. We've accomplished so much since then. Probably the 2 biggest achievements for me are, first, the major reform of our tax code for the first time in 36 years, which has already been a huge success for this country, and that's something I've been working on in my entire adult life. Second, something I got much, much more invested on since becoming Speaker, is to rebuild our nation's military. And after tax reform addressing our military readiness crisis, that was a top priority that we got done last month as well. These I see as lasting victories that will make this country more prosperous and more secure for decades to come. There are so many other things that we have gotten done. And of course, I'm going to look back proudly on my days at the Budget Committee and the Ways and Means Committee. But I don't want to be too sentimental here. I want to be clear, I'm not done yet. I intend to run through the tape to finish the year. Some of you wonder why I can't just do the normal politician thing, and which is to run and then retire after the election. That is what I'm told is the politically shrewd thing to do. I considered that. But just as my conscience is what got me to take this job in the first place, my conscience could not handle going out that way. I pledged to serve the people of Wisconsin, the 1st District, honorably. And in order to serve the people in my district honorably, I have to serve them honestly. And for me to ask them to vote to re-elect me, knowing that I wasn't going to stay, is not being honest. So I simply cannot do that. So that's why I'm announcing this today. Again, I am proud of what this conference has achieved, and I believe its future is bright. The economy is strong. We've given Americans greater confidence in their lives. And I have every confidence that I'll be handing this gavel on to the next Republican Speaker of the House next year. But just to close, I said earlier that I didn't want this job at first, and most of you know this. I really actually didn't. But I have to thank my colleagues for giving me this opportunity and this honor. I am really grateful for it. I also want to thank the people of Southern Wisconsin for placing their trust in me as their representative for the past 20 years. I've tried to bring as much Wisconsin to Washington as I can in that time. It's been a wild ride, but it's been a journey well worth taking to be able to do my part to strengthen the American idea. That pursuit is never ending. Much work remains, but I like to think I have done my part, my little part in history to set us on a better course. Thank you. Sherman.
Will you remain as Speaker?
Yes. No, none whatsoever, actually. Look, you all know me. I didn't take this job to get the gavel in the first place. I'm not a guy who thinks about it like that. This really was two things. I have accomplished much of what I came here to do, and my kids aren't getting any younger. And if I stay, they're only going to know me as a weekend dad, and that's just something I consciously can't do. And that's really it right there.
Yeah. Did you worry about the impact of your announcement on the 2018 midterms and perhaps sending a signal that the House is lost for Republicans?
Yeah, I gave it some consideration, but I really do not believe whether I stay or go in 2019 is going to affect a person's individual race for Congress. I really don't think a person's race for Congress is going to hinge on whether Paul Ryan's Speaker or not. So I really don't think it affects it. Look, if we do our jobs, which we are, we're going to be fine as a majority. I'm grateful for the president to give us this chance to actually get this stuff done. I'm grateful that we have unified government that the president, with his victory, gave us so that we get all these big things done. We're going to have a great record to run on. We have a great economy, great accomplishments, more to do. And I really don't think that the American people are going to want to have the gridlock that the Democrats are promising. So I'm confident we can run through the tape and we can get this done. Bonus.
On the president, he's been openly talking about firing Bob Mueller, potentially firing the Deputy Attorney General. What are your thoughts on that?
My thoughts haven't changed. I think they should be allowed to do their jobs. We have a rule of law in this country, and that's a principle we all uphold. I have no reason to believe that that's going to happen. I have assurances that's not, because I've been talking to people in the White House about it. Rachel. I have great confidence in this leadership team. That's one thing that I'm really proud of. Obviously, I came with a big gulf in leadership when I came here. I think we have a fantastic leadership team. I have more thoughts on this. I think this is probably not the right time to get into that, but I'll share those thoughts later. That election's in November, so it's not something we have to sweat right now. Anna.
To what extent was your decision influenced by the way President Trump has changed the character of Washington and the character of the Republican?
Not at all. Like I said, I'm grateful to the president for giving us this opportunity to do big things to get this country on the right track. So the fact that he gave us this ability to get all this stuff done makes me proud of the accomplishments that I've been a contributor to. Makes me satisfied that I've made a big difference, and he's given us that chance. So I'm grateful to him for that, and that's really how I see it. Thank you very much, everybody. Take care.